So we'll shortly start with our reading. Um, it's a bit of a commotion here. Please excuse us. But before that, I want to welcome you all to this morning's reading session. A few of us are joining for the first time. You've both joined us before, haven't you? But
Yeah.
can everyone know your name?
Maybe.
Please.
Okay, my name is Alex.
Welcome.
My name is Amala.
No, not everyone. Not the usual folks. Prabhu, you've just joined us yesterday, right? You're staying with us for some time. Thank you for your company already. So please, may we have the honor of knowing your name?
My name is
Prem Vardhanadas. Hare Krishna Prabhu. And Mataji has come with you.
My name is Rasa Chitta Devidas.
Rasa Chitta, wow, beautiful. Hare Krishna Mataji. You're here for the first time, are you?
No,
No. We can still know your name, I guess.
my name is Nandini.
Nandini, Jai, Hare Krishna, welcome. The rest of you, we know you. It's okay, Shad. That's not needed. Should we start with the Mangalacharan? It's going to take some time. We can do it from here. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. O my Lord, the all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayana, unto Nar Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author.
Prabhu, do you want to do it in a call and response way because the lyrics are not here?
We don't have enough time. So let's read. Those of you who don't know the prayers, please listen. Nashta prayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. What is next? Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Mukham karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yat kripatam maham vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam. I offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual master, the deliverer of the fallen souls. His mercy turns the dumb into eloquent speakers and enables the lame to cross mountains. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyata Deshatharne. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I don't know when can we read. But for today's Srimad Bhagavatam session, most of what I'll be speaking is from the gurus and masters that I've learned from the purport here. We're actually lucky to have Srila Prabhupada's comments directly in today's purport, because where we are in the Bhagavatam right now, we're seeing less and less purpose from Srila Prabhupada, more so from his very qualified disciples, yes, but today we're reading from him in the purport, so which is very relieving for me. So I have less thinking to do because Srila Prabhupada's purports are just a guiding light. You don't have to think around much because it's very direct also. No room for speculation. Also, much of what I'll be adding to it will be coming from His Holiness Srila Gaur Govind Swami Maharaj. If many of you are not aware of the personality, he was a dear disciple of Srila Prabhupada, who's not with us in body anymore. But just to tell you a tiny story about him, and I read it and I was surprised that maybe you're aware of it, that one day he was with a room full of devotees at some event in Spain. And he was very surprised because they were using oil lamps for lighting in the room. They weren't using electricity. So he was like, do you guys not have electricity, or is it just a norm here to use oil lamps? And then he was told by the people of that region, probably it was a remote region in Spain, that there's no electricity here. And he was like, what are you talking about? I mean, they were like, the electricity here comes from the hydraulic dams. You know, it's water-based electricity, and we haven't had a rain in over 1.5 years. It's a severe drought in the region. So there is no water whatsoever. So there's no electricity right now. And he was like, okay. He was like, I don't remember the exact words of him, but essentially he said that, if we do Sankirtan for Krishna, then he will provide rain because he ultimately controls everything. So if we do it with all our hearts. So that night everyone did Sankirtan together, and towards the end, clouds started to thunder. There was lightning. So everyone got excited. But local people, they said that sometimes clouds, they do some thunder and then it doesn't really rain. There's been a severe drought. So everyone kept chanting anyway. After a night-long ecstatic kirtan, it rained. It rained for hours. There was a flood pretty much in the region. So everyone started coming to Maharaj, paying obeisances, and there was a whole chatter in the town. And so Maharaj, being the purest devotee and being so humble that he is, he wanted to he told his servant to immediately run away from the place. And I don't want to misquote him, but he kind of said something on the lines of that he is so fallen and he doesn't want any appreciation for himself, and it's only Prabhupada. So he ordered his disciples to evacuate the region and take him away from there. So from such pure devotees, even their words are considered to be Shastras, because they're never not in accordance with Shastra anyway. They're never against the Shastras. But to create a good hygiene, devotees like, of course, Srila Prabhupada and Gaur Govind Maharaj, they quote from Shastras to create a culture where there's no room for speculation, even though the truth is revealed in their hearts. Anyway, so now can we read? We're reading from 10th Canto, chapter 20, text 37. (37 to 42). Should we start?
The fish swimming in the increasingly shallow water did not at all understand that the water was diminishing. Just as foolishly family men cannot see the time they have left to live, is diminishing with every passing day.
Can you read it? Next one.
Just as a miserly, poverty-stricken person overly absorbed in family life suffers because he cannot control his senses, the fish swimming in the shallow water had to suffer the heat of the autumn sun.
Gradually, the different areas of land gave up their muddy condition and the plants grew past their unripe stage. In the same way that sober sages give up egotism and possessiveness. These are based on things different from the real self, namely the material body and its byproducts.
With the arrival of autumn, the ocean and the lake became silent, their waters still, just like a sage who has desisted abstain from all material activities and given up his recitation of Vedic mantras.
In the same way, while the practitioners of yoga bring their senses under strict control to check their consciousness from flowing out through the agitated senses, the farmer erected strong mud banks to keep the water within their rich fields from draining out.
That was 42.
The autumn moon relieved all the creatures of the suffering caused by the sun's rays, just as a wisdom relieved person of the misery caused by his identifying with his material body, and as the Lord Mukunda reveals Vrindavana's ladies of the distress caused by their separation from him.
Thank you. We're expanding on verse, which one? I was told that I can choose. That's such freedom. 41. Kedarebhyastvavapo apoabgrihanan Karsha kadrit drida setu dabihi Yatha pranes swaraj kyananam Tannirodena yogi naha. Read it, whatever's meter correct.
It's everyone, right? Kedarbhyastab apogrena.
Thank you. Stapapogrena. Karshaka drida setubhi.
Yatha pranay sravaj gnyanam.
Yatha pranay sravash jnanam.
Tannirodena yogina.
Tannirodena yoginaha. First line.
Again,
Yeah,
Kedar Vyasa Tavo Apograhanan.
Karsaka Dhrida Setubhi.
Yatha pranayi sravadhanam.
Kedare Bhaskata Pogrena.
Karshaka drida setubhi.
Yatha prane swarajnanam.
Yatha
Karshaka Dreda Setubhi. Yata Prane Sravadhanam. Tannirodhena Yogina. Kedarbhyastava Pogrena. Karshaka Dreda Setubhi.
Check. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. We'll read, word by word together, sorry. Do we have that? Kedarebhya, from the flooded fields of rice path, to and above the water, Agni, Shasha, the fire, Drida, strong, Setubhi, with lights, Yatha, as Pranay, through the senses, Shravat, consciousness, that of those senses, Translation together, please. In the same way that the practitioners of yoga bring their senses under the strict control to check their consciousness from flowing out to the agitated senses, and farmers direct strong mind to keep the water in the right place from draining out.
Srila Prabhupada comments, in autumn, farmers save the water within the fields by building strong walls so that the water contained within the field cannot run out. There is hardly any hope for new rainfall. Therefore, they want to save whatever is in the field. Similarly, a person who is actually advanced in self-realization protects his energy by controlling the senses. It is advised that after the age of 50, one should retire from family life and conserve the energy of the body for utilization in the advancement of Krishna consciousness. Unless one is able to control the senses and engage them in the transcendental loving service of Mukunda, there is no possibility of salvation.
Thank you. So, Srila Prabhupada's saying a few things here. First of all, it's rainy. It's rainy weather in Vrindavan. Even the story that I shared about Maharaj was also about rain, coincidentally. I didn't plan it that way. But if you pay attention to what Prabhupada is saying here, there's so much mention about building strong walls so that water contained in the field cannot run out. There's controlling the senses is another term that Prabhupada is using in the purport. And it is not random that the verse itself has senses, the word senses, quite a few times mentioned here. Bring their senses under strict control. I'm reading from translation. Senses under strict control, agitated senses. It's been mentioned twice. Before we even proceed forward, and why is it important for any one of us to even make an endeavor to control our senses? Or is it only relevant to those who are renunciates and monks? Or not? Before we even get into such topics, or even how to do it, let's first read a little more from Prabhupada about this matter. I don't know if you can pull this up or not, but can you go to Vani quotes and look for sense control means? Or you can pull up Srila Prabhupada's lecture also. This one is, oh, that's so long. Are you going in one?
Can you repeat it?
Just look for Bhagavad Gita 2.22 lecture. This is given in Hyderabad. Bhagavad Gita 2.22. But I can read it if you can't pull it up, so that's okay. So here, a devotee is asking Prabhupada that what are the senses and how to control the things to be done. Then Prabhupada is saying that senses, and I'm quoting him, everyone knows, you see, how we are seeing through the sense of the eyes. These are senses, sense organs. You can touch with the hand. These are sense organs. You can hear about some knowledge. That is sense organ. You can taste one fruit. These are senses. Is it very difficult to understand? You have got these senses. By some senses, you're acquiring knowledge. In some senses, you're working. There are 5 senses for acquiring knowledge and 5 senses for working. These are senses. Then devotee asks further that how to control them, what are the things to be done. Then Prabhupada says, yes, control. It is very difficult to control. But if you put it under the control of the Supreme, it will be controlled. You want to see a very beautiful thing, but if you engage your seeing power on the most beautiful, Krishna, then you forget other things. This is sense control. You're going to a restaurant to enjoy your tongue, but if you take Krishna Prasadam, then you'll forget going to restaurant. This is sense control. Sense control means to engage the senses in the service of Krishna. Simply we have to purify the senses. The senses must be there. Please pay attention. Prabhupada is saying the senses must be there. Otherwise, I am not a living being. I am stone.
But at the present moment, I am misguided. I'm using my senses for other purposes than Krishna's. Therefore, I cannot control. And as soon as you apply your senses for satisfying Krishna, then they are controlled automatically. Somebody says that sense control means to stop the action of senses. No. Action of the senses cannot be stopped. Simply, it has to be purified. The action of the senses has to be purified. That is the whole process. So that's from Srila Prabhupada. I just wanted to have a solid bedrock from his words to expand on it further. See, the thing is that everyone's trying to find happiness, and this is an understatement. Anyone here who's willingly trying to find sadness and distress or misery? You? No, right? No one. No one. Now, why can people really find a lasting sense of happiness? That is a natural question that comes because we can see the people around us or can observe our lives, and we see that happiness seems to appear here and there, pretty fickle, then it seems to disappear, or transient or impermanent. So why is it so? And see, it also depends on how much of a state of ignorance you are in. Because sometimes some things can really appear to be happiness, but they're not. Krishna in Bhagavad Gita clearly describes 3 types of happiness. Happiness in the mode of ignorance, passion, and goodness. And he mentions, and I'm not quoting right now, and he mentions that happiness in the mode of goodness appears to be poison at first, but nectar later. So how do you even comprehend such an instruction, right? But first, let's get to why. Why can't we find happiness using these 5 senses that Prabhupada just expanded on? I would like to ask you a question, Amala Harinam Prabhu. Do you desire for things in general? Any kind of desires? Right. Anyone here who has no desires? I can touch your feet. No. No one today. So what's wrong with desiring?
Nothing.
There's nothing wrong, right? So, but imagine if you were a father, not you right now. If let's say you were to be a father. You can imagine this for yourself. And if your little child walks up to you and then they mention that, I want to fly a plane. Or I want to fly in the sky. And they're expressing this desire to you. Would you look down at them? Would you ridicule them in your head? Would you think that this person, what would you think about that desire? Let's say a little child comes to you, Vatsal Prabhu, and then they say, I just changed the person. And that I want to fly in the sky like a bird is flying. What would you say to that person, that little kid? Won't be possible. But I want it. Why? I want it.
Probably picking up and just do like this.
Okay, that is one way. But I want to fly like a bird in the sky. Okay, the point is, what is immoral about that little kid's desire? Nothing. It's impractical, yes. But the kid doesn't have that understanding developed yet. Have you, Kiran Prabhu, ever gone to Diksha Prabhu and mentioned that I want to fly in the sky like a bird? Seriously? No. Because you can't. You have that understanding. Little kid doesn't. Now, people try to find happiness through the actions of these 5 senses. So the desire is not a bad idea. It's not immoral. But they just don't know it doesn't exist there. Let's say I'm looking for Jivadoya Prabhu, because usually he's hard to find. So he's like, but in men ashram, if you live, then you can find him somewhat easier. Jivadoya Prabhu, where are you? But if he's not in this conference hall right now, and I'm finding him everywhere, will I ever get to him? No, because he's just not present here. Now, that is the state of a conditioned mind. That is the state of a conditioned jiva. That we're trying to find happiness in the world, the material world, which essentially exists out of permutations and combinations of these sensations. Now, happiness doesn't exist there, so you can't find it. Is the endeavor bad? No, it's natural. Everyone wants to be happy. But it just doesn't exist there. So it is impractical. You can stretch it as far as and say that it's stupid. But it cannot be ridiculed, the effort, right? So I want you to touch the table right now with any one of your hands. Try to feel the sensation. Can you feel the table right now? Right? So these are some sensations you're experiencing on your fingers. Right? Try to focus on your ear while you're hearing me. Whatever. Hare Krishna. There's some sensations. Your ears, Prabhupada just mentioned, that's another sense that you're operating in. So through these 5 gross and 5 subtle senses, but for simpler understanding, these 5 senses, eyes, nose, hearing, touch, tasting, you experience certain sensations. Now in this world of sensation, you're trying to find that which is lasting. It doesn't exist. So that's why the effort is impractical. Now, so where does happiness ultimately reside is the next natural question that comes, that follows this. And here Prabhupada's mentioning, actually in the translation, the speaker speaking, in the same way that the practitioners of yoga bring their senses under strict control to check their consciousness from flowing out through agitated senses, the farmers erect strong mud banks to keep the water within the rice fields from draining out. Okay, so if it's not in this world of sensations that we're living in this material world, then where does true happiness reside? Someone the other day gave a very good example. Who was that speaker? Please remind me. That they mentioned that we have known happiness, that's why we're aiming for it. If you want to go to Paris, that means, if you want to travel, that means sometime you've traveled, only that's why you can even comprehend it. So we want to be happy, that means that we've been to a world or at least a place or a dimension or an experience where we've experienced some happiness. So it's not that we've never experienced it. The only question is how to get there. I heard it from one of you guys some time back. Who was it? I don't remember. Was it you, Sarthak?
I said it yesterday.
You said it? Okay, wonderful. So it was very deep. So now we're talking about going to a spiritual world which is eternal, which is full of bliss, which is full of love, which is full of happiness. A lasting one which doesn't fade after some time, which is not made up of these material sensations which are limiting, which are transient and impermanent. So in that regards, why are we not there already right now? So it is said that, and there's a whole elaborate concept, I'm trying to see how to simplify it, that we as living entities, we are said to be a part of what is called Tatishta Shakti of Krishna. So it could be expanded. If you read the works of Goswamis, Krishna and his energies or his potencies could be elaborated on multiple levels. In fact, it is said that it is countless. It cannot even be understood. But for the sake of simplification, you could think of it as 3 classifications: internal, marginal, and external. Antaranga or Tatishta, and Bahiranga or external. Right? So Antaranga is internal. Everything that happens within the spiritual world, Golok Vrindavan, in Vaikuntha planets, is under the purview, is under the proprietorship of the internal potency of Krishna. That's where happiness resides. Now there is an external manifestation of Krishna's energy, which is Maya, and through which creates this material world, which is essentially a permutation and combination of different sensations. So this is this external world. Now there is a transition, or the word tata means shore. When we sing Gaurarati, Janavi tata. So it's tata, sometimes we pronounce it wrong. Tata means a shore. How many of you have been to a beach? Or a riverbank, or a shore? Pretty much everyone. Right? So there are 2 choices there. There's the bank, like there's the dry part, which is the sand, and then there is pretty much water. And then there is right where water's hitting the sand, that little part, which is sometimes dry, sometimes wet, depending on the waves. The jivas, or the living entities, all of us, by Acharyas mentioned that we belong to that category. So in that place, we have a choice, whether do we want to dip in the water or do we want to be on the dry shore. It is our choice. So the jiva the living entity has that independence. Sometimes people can become cranky and say that, why am I even being given a choice? If Krishna is so all-loving, why can't he just throw me into the waters? Well, if you've ever thought that you've loved someone, there is one typical quality in that interaction is respect of one's sense of choice. It is actually in material relationships, in human relationships, it is actually enforcing. There's very little. You can observe your own life. If you really thought that you really appreciated someone or you loved someone, but if they left, you should be happy that they're making a choice, right? You could be concerned about them, whether they're making a wrong choice or not. But you wouldn't get as strong an anxiety or this, oh, what am I losing because I want this person, if it was so much selfless. But it is not selfless. It's just good to be honest about it. So what I'm saying is, if Krishna's all-loving, why can't he just rescue us or push us into the spiritual world where eternal happiness resides? Well, it's a matter of independence. Come to think of it this way, that if you really admire someone and they're there and they're giving attention to someone else, you wouldn't go near there. Because out of respect, it's just not aesthetic. I wouldn't want to be there. If they want to be there, let it be. Even though I'm burning with anxiety or jealousy or whatever, I just wouldn't be there. But Krishna never loses our sight. And you never lose the sight of that situation also. You keep an eye anyway, whether directly or on the side. Because you have some interest in that matter. So Krishna has interest in our lives also because we belong to him. So he never loses our sight either. But just to give quite a mundane analogy or a visualization, imagine him sitting in the corner looking that, what if? After he'll observe that if we pay attention to him, he might just come closer. But after a while, he might just get so impatient, because then what he might do, send a friend of his that, please, can you go and nudge that person? I know that I'm good for them and they're good for me, but right now they're just distracted. Can you just poke a little finger on them? Or can you just give a little shoulder nudge to them so they look at me? So from the spiritual world, Krishna sends his people to us time to time to remind us also. I'm only trying to use a very relatable analogy because most people go through this in their youth. So not that these kind of interactions are to be seen in comparison with Krishna's Leelas. They are transcendental to all these emotions. Right? So he sends Srila Prabhupada, he sends so many people from the spiritual world to guide us, to remind us, to poke us from time to time. In fact, the manifestation of his material energy, Devi Durga, Maya, Mahamaya, she herself is serving this purpose of trying to not hurt Krishna by keeping us away because we're not so much fully into him, because we're exercising our freedom of choice. But at the same time, she gives us little pinpricks also to just let us know that, you reside eternally somewhere else anyway, not here. So the point what I was trying to get to through all this is that we've been given a certain freedom of choice and we're kind of like abusing it or for our own bad. And then we're trying to keep our face away from Krishna. And so that is the reason that he doesn't quite push us into the ocean, just to respect our sense of choice. Now today is also Ekadashi, am I correct? Okay, so good luck. But Ekadashi is a vrata. So Ekadashi is a vrata. You've all heard of the word vrata before, right? Can you think of how do you translate the word vrata in English? Fast, but I could be running. What do you mean by fast? Abstaining from food, is that fast? Or running at a rapid pace, is that fast? What is a vrata?
Like what?
You ever heard of the word pati vrata? So is that fasting from your husband? Sorry, someone already said it. Wow. You said that? Yes. It's a vow. You also said it. Never mind, whoever said it. A vrata is a vow. It's a promise. It's kind of like an oath that you take. So brahmacharya is a vow. We'll get to different kinds of vows that could be taken. Why am I saying that? Is that right now we talked about how keeping senses under check, under control is very important to experience a sense of happiness. Or at least to not experience too much of a sense of illusory happiness, which appears like nectar at first, but is actually poison, as Krishna describes in Bhagavad Gita. The simple solution to all of that is to do vrata. No, I'm not saying fast every day, but to live a life of vow. You should have vows in your life. It's very important. Visheshika Prabhu talks about the importance of this. Because only through that is you live a life which is directed in a certain way. It's not randomly, haphazardly happening, and you're not flowing in all directions and become a loose person or a loose being or a jiva that we are already. So vrata is a very important word. Anyone here has heard of this story from Mahabharata? It's about a personality called Savitri. You haven't. But it's so popular in the Indian culture that if we think of a woman who is very chaste to her husband and very loyal, it should apply to men also, but I don't know why in popular culture it applies to women mostly. She's said to be called Savitri or Sati or Sita at max, because these are some of the personalities which are an example of very chaste and loyal women who were totally surrendered to one personality in their life. Right? So Savitri, just to tell you that story in brief, and it's being narrated by, I think, Rishi, either Markandeya or one of the rishis who's also mentioned, Maharshis who's mentioned in Bhagavatam also. The story talks about that she was a very beautiful princess in an empire. Everyone was drooling after her. And she went to a forest one day and she saw this person whose name was, I think, Satyavahan. And she fell in love with that person. So she told her father that I want to get married to this person, who is essentially a forest dweller, who is a son of a king in exile, actually. Satyavahan's father is a king in exile, so they lost a kingdom and they're living in a forest right now. So the king resisted, but then he was like, fine, if that's who you want. But Narada Muni, this mischievous, pure devotee of the Lord, has to appear in these scenes. So he comes and he says that Satyavan has a condition in his astrology that whenever he gets married, in 1 year he'll die. So he mentions it to Savitri. But Savitri has already given her heart to this person. She has many other options, many beautiful, charming, well-behaved, rich princes and kings. But she sticks to that person because she is Pativrata. Why am I sharing this story? I'll tell you. And how is it relevant to every grihast ashram, every ashrama, whether that's a brahmachari or sannyasi. And the highest of standards of austerity is being displayed here by a person who's actually in a grihast ashrama. So she's like, no, I only want to be that person. If he dies, he dies. Or not, I won't have any other person in my life. So she goes, and whatever, they get married. The father was like, what can I do now anyway? Kids won't listen. So so she gets married, and they're living a very happy married life in the forest, away from all the riches of the kingdom that she was used to. Now, the date of 1 year anniversary is coming to closer. And Narad Muni's words are ringing in her head. So sometime before 1 year, she's like, okay, fine, I'll do some severe austerity. So she starts to fast, meditate on the Supreme Personality. And she's like, I'll make sure this person doesn't die. But when his time comes, Yamaraj sends his Yamadutas, the messengers of the god of death, Yama, to rescue Satyavahan's soul and take him to the world where a judgment is passed on someone who's died, pretty much. So the Yamadutas couldn't even touch Satyavahan because of the effulgence coming from Savitri, because of her penance and strong sense of chastity that she has towards her husband. The Yamadutas surrendered and they went back and they informed Yamaraj. Then Yamaraj himself came. Usually he doesn't come because he rules that world where all this judgment of souls are. He doesn't usually come himself. He's quite fancy that way. So he himself came sitting on a buffalo. And then Savitri is like, no. And he's like, yes. So he decides to take Satyavan with him. And now they're going all the way to Yamalok, traveling through different. We have concept of multiverses in our Sanatana Dharma, which is very beautiful, because at the time when Europe thought the whole world was a plate, we had the concept of, with no offense, we had concepts of not only our universe, but multiverses, which scientists are beginning to comprehend now. So we have different lokas and Brahman, Anantakoti Brahmans, multiverses is the concept. So they're going to another realm, another planet, another world, which is Yamalok. So she's traveling with him everywhere. Now we can go to different lokas with the same bodies. If we're present, Srila Prabhupada described this in his books. If we're present in this material world right now, we have a material body which grows out of the food that we eat. So we're present here. If we go to Yamalok, need to have a different kind of a body, wherever realm we go to. But the strength of her penance is so strong that she's actually able to traverse through different lokas. So she's not leaving Yamaraj. And he's like, why is she after me? Doesn't she understand? So Yamaraj stops somewhere on the way to Yamalok, and in some transient on the way king realm, and he's like, "What do you want, woman?" And she's like, "Him." So, no. He's like, "I can't do that, but I'm so impressed. I'll give you what you want, but not him." She's like, "Okay." Return the kingdom to my husband's father, which was lost. He's in exile. Done. He got his kingdom back. Satyavan is unfamiliar of it because he's in that stage where he's going into Yamalok or whatever, on Yamaraj's buffalo. So now she's still not leaving him because she wants her husband back. So Yamaraj is traveling further. Yamaraj makes another stop. What do you still want, woman? And she's like, him. He's like, no, anything but him. Fine. His father also lost his eyes. He was blind. Return those eyes. Fine. Granted. Yamaraj is still traveling further. She's like, no. By the way, this is not funny. Because traveling through these different worlds in the material body that she has, it's painful. If you go to space and you need a space suit because the pressure is so much that your body will burst forth. But she's traveling through all these different worlds in the material body that she was given. So imagine the strength of her opulence and austerity. And she was not a yogi by any means. Just her chastity, her single-pointedness and focus gave her so much effulgence. And that's relevant to people in all varnashramas. So now ultimately Yamaraj is like, please leave my sight. And then he's like, one final wish. After that, I'll just start to ignore you. I'm so much impressed from you anyway. So I'm used to your presence. So she's like, okay, what can I wish? How do I get him back? She's like, I want to be granted a wish to have so many children. And Yamaraj is like, okay, granted. Oh. I've given her a boon now. I have to make sure, when a deity gives a boon, they have to make sure that it's fulfilled. They have to make arrangements. But he knows that she won't marry someone else. So he's like, fine, accept this guy and just go away. Never see me again. So Savitri rescued her husband from Yamaraj's clutches. Even by Krishna's authority, Yamaraj works on Krishna's authority that he gives judgments according to one's own karmas. So her austerity was such strong that her austerity overpowered Krishna's rules and regulations that have been established in the world. Because this is also Krishna's rules and regulation that if you have that sense of austerity, then you can get what you want. She was able to do that. So this is the strength of vrata. It's very important. So, talking about brahmacharya ashrama. So in varnashrama dharma, it has prominently 4 or 5 stages. Brahmacharya is the stage of learning, where ideally everyone is supposed to go through brahmacharya ashrama. Everyone who's living in the temple is very much that. So when I'll be using this word brahmachari, it's not only applying to people who are wearing an orange costume, but everyone who's living in the temple, and everyone who's living outside, who is interested in generating vrata in their life. So, brahmacharya ashram is the beginning. It is the most fundamental part of one's life. Just as our parents would tell us that you performing well or getting enough knowledge in your high school, in your college and undergrad degree is very important because your career depends on it, your life depends on it. Just like in your spiritual life, which is about internal state of our happiness. Spiritual life is about happiness. Material life is about external conveniences. So to live a happy life, having a solid spiritual foundation is important. Therefore, brahmacharya ashram is extremely important for every person. Now, in that stage, Gorgan Maharaj shares that 4 things are very important, which I haven't memorized, but let me just translate them. Is that you should take shower like a crow, kakasnan. What does that mean? It should be quick. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't clean your body properly. Please hear, especially those who stay close to me, take proper showers. The point is to not so much be concerned about your bodily conceptions and how am I looking and grooming. It should be quick, that you take proper shower and get ready for your morning program. Kakasnan. And then another is to have, I forgot the traditional words he used, but it was like to have a dhyan like a crane, to have a focus or meditation like a crane. You've seen the bird crane? It stands on one leg and it looks around for fishes. And so it doesn't even move. It's that as soon as a fish comes, like, like that. So to have a single pointed dhyan or focus or chanting in your regimental routine. And then he talks about swan and nidra or something, that you sleep like a dog. No, that doesn't mean that some of the you mentioned your pet dog sleeps like, but if you ever have, some pet dogs are not even dogs, okay? Like they're living more luxurious life than humans, so they have lost their natural quality. But if you know an actual dog, as soon as, that's why you keep them for houses security, because as soon as there's some trespassing, there's some sound that they notice, they're like, oh, what's happening? So your sleep should be like that. It shouldn't indulge in oversleeping. And you should, what was the fourth one? You should eat less, basically. Eat like, I forgot what was the example, but eat less. Now you should have enough nourishment for your body, so that's important. But you should make a check. It's not very difficult to be truthful to yourself whether you're overeating or not. Okay, so these four things actually, as tiny or as not non-important that they might appear to be, they are the very solid bedrock of brahmacharya. For anyone who's living outside the temple, wherever, if you take care of these four things, then only you can do things further, otherwise not. You just raise your hand.
Yeah, I just want to know, like, the scientist says, like, we have to have a deep sleep. If, according to you, if you are saying we should be alert while sleeping, that wouldn't be possible.
Yes. We should have a deep resting sleep, but that doesn't mean that it has to be a deep sleep of 9 hours, 10 hours, like many. I don't know which scientist says it, because you maybe you hear it on a reel or somewhere and then people think that it's a scientist saying it. A sound, relaxing sleep is very important. But if you're doing other things right, if you're eating just to provide good enough nutrition to your body, if you're having a focused meditation, which 99% of the people don't have in your life, and if you are, what's the other thing? Not so much indulged in your appearance and not focusing too much on how you're getting dressed and stuff, then your sleep quota will naturally reduce. Whatever sleep that you're having, it will be deep in nature, but it will be, you don't need many, many hours of sleep like that. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes 3 modes of material nature. Tamogun is the mode of ignorance. If you observe how you're sleeping, a deep sleep especially is when you're lost. Anyone who's aware of themselves in their sleep, maybe you're not yogis, but so am I not. But what I'm saying is that it's tamogun, it's pure, deep ignorance mode. You're ignorant of your own existence in your sleep, right? So too much sleep is not good. And if you have more of qualities of goodness or sattva gun, and Krishna describes in Bhagavad Gita how to get it, how to have a lifestyle according to that, then you won't be so much indulged in tamogun. So your sleep, whatever limited time, it will be deep and relaxing. We can come back to it later, but right now I want to cover a few more points. So going back to brahmacharya ashrama, these 4 things are important. Even when people get married, actually Gaur Govind Maharaj describes two types of brahmacharis. Can you guess? I don't remember the traditional words, but I remember the English. Can you guess? I want guesses here right now. 2 types of brahmacharis. No guesses? Yes.
Household brahmachari?
Yes. He said one is a household brahmachari and another one is basically a non-household brahmachari. So if people are imagining that I'm living a life of a brahmachari, then after that I'll get a free passport to indulge in material gratification. You can do that. Most people are doing that. But then the purpose itself of first establishing yourself in solid spiritual foundation to have a lasting sense of happiness will be defeated in that process. And maybe for some people it may still be fine because they have a lot of mercy. Through that indulgence, they may discover that that I've committed a mistake, right? So that is possible, but for most people, it wouldn't be possible. It is said that the desire, or the thirst, you're trying to satisfy your desires materially through involving in this world of sensations. It's like putting oil in fire. It's like putting ghee in fire. Can you really dispense out a fire by putting oil in it? It is only aggravating further. So anyway, when people do transition into Grihast Ashrama, that doesn't mean it's an end of brahmacharya. In fact, it is a little more austere brahmacharya. Because if you are a brahmachari and if you're not married, whether that's a man or a woman, so Shastras don't recommend women to be lifelong or nashtiki brahmacharis only because the time, place, circumstances, primarily. There are a few factors, and I'm not qualified to talk about all of them, but I can mention briefly about a few of them. One is that at that time, everything was very physical, right? There were not many machines. Today, if you have to go and get grocery, you can drive a car and go. But imagine even if you have to have a nice dosa, you have to grind the batter. Everything was just very physical. So at that time, animals would just enter into your house. So you needed someone more muscular to take care of you all the time, right? You can't live alone by yourself. So women were recommended to be married and to have, move from their father's protection to their husband's protection. So that was there. Now there's technology everywhere. There's a level playing field. You have more of a choice. As per Shastras, you can make more informed choices. Also, so if you observe the woman's monthly cycle, the cycle itself is pushing to have a child. So she may, I'm not saying all women may have that desire, but if they're somewhat naturally aligned with their body's natural disposition or disposition, the body itself is seeking pregnancy, right? So they're more so inclined towards starting a family, but such may not be the case for every man. So traditionally, they've been asked to have a grihastha life and to find fulfillment that way. But how is their austerity in a grihastha life is different than a man's austerity? Because there are finer nuances, and we can understand it from Savitri's example. That sense of, Srila Prabhupada's mentioned in a lecture, I heard that lecture about marriage. There are 2 lectures that I've heard from him about this. You can look for it later. He mentions how an ideal marriage is where a husband is totally surrendered to Krishna. In that way, he doesn't see his wife as an object of pleasure and to extract pleasure out of her. But he sees herself as Krishna's property. And so it's his job to protect her, to serve her, care for her. And she sees herself surrendered to Krishna, of course, but also to her husband. So in that way, because he protects me, he takes care of me, whatever. Now it may not be so much relevant. It's more like an equal partnership these days because of technology primarily. It's not women's right so much which has provided this equal level field. With all respect, as I'm also considering myself to be a part of proponents of women's right. But it is technology after all which has facilitated more freedom, let's be honest. So anyway, so Savitri's example is on how even being in a grihastha ashrama, how to be austere, how to be single-pointed and dedicated. These days it's very difficult because there's thousands of options everywhere, and we're being trained from our childhood to swipe left and right, to just not be single-pointed. So that is why it is very important for people to go through stages of brahmacharya and training in their life, to train themselves to be single-pointed. It is equally important for men and women. I want to quote before we leave because one of the strongest brahmacharis that we have in our ashram is Sarthak, and who is also my dearest friend. But when he gets into his relaxing moods, he likes to listen to, for inspiration, so many. Don't know the meter. Dear Lord, when I get to heaven, please let me bring my man. When he comes, tell me that you'll let him in. So, but this is Savitri of another kind. But what I'm saying is, actually there's a lot more that I want to expand on, but we're out of time. Maybe another day, another class. What you should research after this to expand further on the things that I've shared is to hear from Prabhupada and his dear disciples, Gauragovind Maharaj that I read from, is to have an understanding of what is a jiva and what is Radha Tattva. It's very important. I haven't mentioned it so far because then I won't be able to be silent with respect to the time limit. And to understand that what is pleasure, where it comes from. And ultimately it's about the only object of pleasure, of love, is Krishna. And the only one who can love someone is Radharani. Multiple acharyas, including His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj, has mentioned the same things. I hear it from Prabhupada in one way or another also. Now I heard it from Gauragovind Maharaj also. So it is only she who can love. He is the one who can be loved. And if we want to, we have to love him, but we cannot, because it is not a jiva's authority to. Maharaj mentions this again. Even bhakti is not, and it's not an authority of jiva. It is only through Nitya Mukta, Krishna's Krishna's eternal companions from the spiritual world, if they glance mercy on us, Nitya Baddha Jivas, if anyone's a hidden Nitya Siddha, then I beg your forgiveness. But it is only their mercy, Krishna's eternal companions from spiritual worlds, if they provide mercy on us, then we can get bhakti and then we can get to the spiritual world, because it is not our right to even have bhakti. That's what Maharaj mentions. So with that, I also want to invite you all for coming Tuesday to the temple, because Mahaprabhu's appearance day is there. I wanted to bring in Mahaprabhu here because he actually reveals how to get to love, which is what everyone's seeking. And something good to research about it would be about Lord Kapiladev's teachings, because he expands on what is called Shankhya philosophy. Shankhya, Prabhupada in one of Bhagavatam purports describe as completely legitimate path. But Shankhya doesn't have so much of a concept of Paramatma directly, or rather people have misinterpreted Lord Kapil Dev, who is Krishna's incarnation's teachings, to be devoid of a presence of Paramatma. But Sankhya philosophy is heavily present on Purusha and Prakriti as concept. And manifestations of Purusha for the understanding is considered to be Lord Shiva, and Prakriti to be Mother Parvati. So from their understanding, Lord Kapil Dev explains, Sankhya philosophy explains Purusha and Prakriti, and how ultimately, so that is on the level of Sankhya philosophy, but the core essence of, on the level of Krishna consciousness, it is understood that Krishna is the only Purusha, and every other living entity or whatever that exists is ultimately a part of Prakriti. So Prakriti's purpose is to serve Purusha, and Purusha's purpose is actually to enjoy. I'm sorry, that I don't want to say that man's purpose is to enjoy a woman. This is transcendental Purusha and Prakriti we're talking about. Even men here, and bodily men here, they're part of Prakriti only. So they're supposed to give enjoyment to the senses, transcendental senses, of the only Purusha, that is Krishna. And through that, your senses are also satisfied, and you are able to experience that sense of love and happiness, which you're trying to find into this. We're trying to find into this world of sensations, but it doesn't quite get there. So Mahaprabhu reveals the path on how to get to that Krishna Prema, which is a chanting of Mahamantra, following regulations. So please come here on Tuesday. You'll hear much more about him. Okay? Hare Krishna.